memories could be conjured, reflected in this three-way mirror of life's dressing room, where time, her sole attendant, waits on you, stands at the helm of your tomorrows, guards each block memory, stories suppressed for sanity's sake, which would take you past the brink. What doors could be unlocked were you to welcome disassembled specks of wrecked reflections that haunt today every part of your very soul. You see the all too familiar shadows in alleyways and alcoves where whispers scream in disparate rhythms to which you have danced all your life. Would you pursue fantasy as your escape? Vision realities so far from your todays they unfold upon and inside, sufficient to only allow shallow breaths, taking you to realms where air is sweet, where possibility greets you, not with cynicism, but honor and beauty. Parts of a prism that refracted into fractured fragments, precariously poised between brilliance and indulgence. You learned long ago that such duality makes for excellent imagery, yet it is memory who strangles all your strivings. He alone is your mirrored partner who shields, blocks you from truths, warns you to forget memories that dance too close to daybreak, too close to REM fluttering eyelids and inside dreams and minds that find reverie of familial bliss, only to be caught in cataclysmic scenes of chaos and decay. It is this dance that keeps memory shifted, yet somehow allows you to remain sane.
License and registration, he can sense your aggravation.
On the head of the fallen angel.
When the world is muttering under the floorboards, stomp even louder.
Time.
Let them know you are alive today.
Or unhum.
Did you know that your hands came with a ripple effect?
Whisper tones unraveling like silk.
Blood, sweat, and tears win by any means poetry.
Sway, look at me. Is a piece of the pie too good for me?
Some may call it rock the mic. We call it poetry.
Hello, and welcome to Sojourn with Words. And for those of you that are regular viewers, welcome back. I'm your host, Sistah Joy, and we are excited to have you with us one more time right here on CTV. I'm excited because I have one of my favorite poets, someone that I've admired for a while now, and I hope you will admire his work as well. I'm speaking of Brian Donnell James. Now, Brian is a poet that speaks to many issues, but let me start with a bio profile, as it were, so that you can get to know him a bit about him before we bring him on and before you hear his poetry. Brian Donnell James is a United Nations and National Poetry Month award-winning poet who regularly speaks at universities and colleges across the country. He is an emerging writer who has been published in Africa, Europe, and throughout the United States. His work has appeared in several anthologies and literary magazines of merit. He is a fellow for the Martha's Vineyard Creative Writing Institute and has been a poetry judge for Penguin Random House Maryland Library System We Need Diverse Books, the Virginia Writers Club, the Golden Nib, and Poetically Correct. So that gives you a little bit about the breadth of this poet's work, because he's certainly not limiting his viewership or his audiences to those within the United States. It is my privilege and my pleasure to welcome Brian Donnell James. Welcome to Sojourn with Words.
Thank you so much for having me, Sistah Joy. I'm a very big fan of yours as well.
Well, thank you. Now, in order for our viewers to get to know you before they actually hear your poetry, which I always enjoy, I'm going to sit back when it comes time for that. Let's share a few pointers. Now, when we talk about American South in relation to African Americans, what does that mean to you? Why is that significant in your poetry?
Well, being an African American is just a wonderful privilege. Being reared in all parts of the South, everywhere from Alabama to Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina.
Oh, moved around a bit. Okay.
Well, yes, and family as well. Georgia, things of this nature. You hear these rich stories of overcoming struggle, doing and making the best out of bad situations, and just a resiliency. And it's more than African American history as well. The South itself, it's American history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad to hear you say that, because so oftentimes when we're speaking to, say, communities other than our own, the notion that African American history is not American history is a prevailing view, and I totally disagree with that notion. So when you talk about American South in your poetry, most often, do you find yourself speaking about contemporary American South, or do you speak about historic issues and views and occurrences?
Well, it's funny how you worded that. I don't speak to my poetry. It's like my poetry speaks to me.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
like and sometimes I hear voices or have images from the past. I have a lot of period pieces that are based in the 30s and the 40s. And then I have more quote unquote modern poetry that talk about the so-called New South. But in every instance, the poetry speaks to me. It's a wide labyrinth, you know. So yeah, the poet it speaks to me. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're talking about, in particular, the culture of African Americans, which is very significant in your poetry,
Yes.
and you talk about the resilience of African American women,
Oh yes.
how is that significantly portrayed in your poetry, and how do those voices come to you?
They come to me. I have a poem called Grandma that starts with, I still hear her prayers whispered upon the night winds. I still smell her hands scented with the olive oils that she used to braid the most kinkiest of hair. And these are images from my childhood. I was very quiet, only child, but I was very observant. Unfortunately, my father passed away when I was very young, so I was raised by women.
Oh, okay. So I'm sure that's significant in your choice of voice, because as a man, for you to select African American women as a significant element in your writing, That would be an interesting fact. That would be an interesting element. So, is that something that you find the majority of your messages relate that of the African American women, or not necessarily?
Well, I try to honor that whenever I can, because they really are the backbone of the African American family. Without our women, we would not have survived the things that we have gone through as a part of our country. So I try to honor them whenever I can.
Okay.
But no, I just believe in like positivity. So I'm all over the place. I have a poem on autism I'm gonna share today about my grandson. I am involved with programs that speak to homelessness with Dr. Hiram LaRue, cancer support, anything I can do to make this world a better place. That's what my work speaks to. Anything that my spirit feels that this is what God wants, that's where I'm leaded to.
Okay. Okay. Now, when you talk about seeing the Creator's blessings and finding angels, talk to us about that, because I'm a very spiritual person, and I certainly seek to uplift messages of inspiration. So when you talk about creator's blessings, the creator's blessings and finding angels, how does that how is that reflected in your poetry?
Well, first you have to open up your spirit. You have to open up your spirit so you can hear, so that you can see. There's miracles that are performed every day, but we'll just walk right past it as if it's nothing. And someone, God will use someone as a vessel to deliver a message to you. But if you're not in tune spiritually, you'll miss that message. So I try to keep my spirit open to those things so I can see and I can hear them. And throughout my life, there's been some wonderful people that have just helped me along the way. And I do call them living angels, because every morning when you wake up, you have a choice. You can be an angel or you can be something else to somebody. you know. So I always want to try to be an angel to others. And then me opening up myself spiritually, I can see when others are trying to be a positive effect in my life as well.
Okay, okay. I'm in the camp of trying to be positive and contribute to the positive as well. So hence I invite poets like you on to Sojourn with Words. So thank you so much for creating those positive messages. You speak about uplifting children in your poetry. Talk to me about that, in addition to the African American women and the ancestors and generations gone by. Talk about uplifting children through poetry. How does that work for you?
Well, after I lost my father, tender age, I think I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. I was very vulnerable. I remember those feelings of vulnerability, and I just never forgot that. And when I look in children's eyes, and I just love to try to inspire them and try to motivate them. It was the poetry that saved me. I started writing at a very young age. So I get excited when I see young poets. I try to encourage them. I try to uplift them. And not only just those kids within your reach. There's a poem I'm going to share today called Ayansha, which is about a young Indian girl halfway across the world I've never met. But I was able to tap in spiritually to what I thought her spirit would want to hear, because she's going through a lot of horrible things, due to COVID in India. They are not as blessed as we are. And we're struggling here trying to maintain things. So you can only imagine what it's like over there.
Right. Well, I hear so much empathy and just compassion and human kindness through just the conversation here. And I know that that's going to be a part of the poetry that we hear as well. Why is it important for you to convey empathy and compassion through your poetry?
because I think it's the natural flow of the universe. You know, it has to be. We need to take better care of each other. There needs to just be more kindness and empathy in the world to make it a better place. I want to make it a better place for my children now grown and their my grandchildren.
Right, right. Okay. Well, how about we let folks hear some of what we've been talking about? How about the viewers of Sojourn with Words? It is my privilege and my absolute honor now to present to you poet extraordinaire Brian Donnell James sharing his poetry that will give you an indication just what it is we've been talking about. And before you share your poetry, Brian, is there a website or a social media presence that you can let our viewers know how they can see or hear you, be in touch with you after today?
Yes, of course, I have a Facebook page, but I do have a professional website, briandonnelljames.com. And I share, the things that I'm doing on that side.
Got it. Okay. We want our viewers to be able to be in touch. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to sit back and enjoy poetry. I hope our viewers will do the same.
I hope so. I pray so as well. I really like to move spirit. So I sincerely hope that's the case. The first piece I like to share is called The Tear Collectors. The Tear Collectors. If you stared with venomous glares, clenched your teeth through jaws set in stone, twisted your mouth to hurl spit and sprout hatred, use your fists to pound into flesh, and set snarling dogs upon children, and hid under white sheets for newly found courage. If you released your unholy energies upon those who had no refuge, release your unholy marriage of arrogance and unruly law upon the innocent and the virtuous, then yes, you have wreaked fear without remorse, as if there was no divinity in the universe. But remember, we are the children born from indigo and ebony. The reflection of our ancestors' cries, they exist in the midnight of our skins. They are in the skyline of our eyes, dark planets against the moon's eclipse. They are the rhythm flowing in our veins. We are the collectors of their tears, the dust of their bodies released into atmospheres and scattered in time. Now no longer are they formless. From their pain, we reborn the art of verse. We are the collectors of their tears, yes, all nations and peoples of suffrage born to reside in solidarity. Nay, we will never taste defeat. You cannot conquer peace. We are the collectors of their tears, and even in your deformity, your foul deeds, we survived. We created beauty, a strength unyielding, our greatest inheritance. From an ancient people facing life at its worst and horrid death, still do not weep for themselves, but for you. Yes, they wept for you, as you must face your impending and eternal judgment. For there is a divinity in the universe. Thank you. The next piece is Reflections of the South. And I compare my relationship with the South as being in love with a woman. So, reflections of her, the South. She was to me a single drop of cool water, brushed along the dry, cracked lips of a tired laborer. She became to me a heavy rain, densely veiled in mist. There was no vision in her storm. She inspired me with her loveliness in dawns and twilights of violet, where birds tweet and crows caw. She ignited within me the anger of raging rivers, leaving broken trees ripped and uprooted by her chaos wayside. Yes, I recalled. This is how I loved her. She was to me a single seed planted in famine, Deep within the rich black soil of the Delta, she preached a ministry of kindness and cruelty and brought to me the sustenance of honey and the sourness of vinegar. She held summer captive in the blush of her lips, her kiss, so I could never settle in a season or time. And this love, born in the death of a rebel's cry, upon black backs cracked in fields, branded and bonded with iron, no longer it seems that has souls, grass that has souls that are thirsty, longing for peace and serenity, but she leaves behind only faith and tears to quench windpipes covered in thorns. And ashes are still faintly smoldering, making her promises hard to trust. Yet still she lives in my core, so I yield to her beauty. Yes, this is how I cared. She became to me a foregone forever, lost in the handshakes and nods from strangers in small towns. She became to me lifetimes lost with the loyalty and betrayal of the stars and bars of Dixie. Come, sit a spell. She will lull you to sleep and seduce you. She will become one with you. Yes, I recall. This is how I loved her. The next piece is Ayansha, the Indian girl. What past life glory, what marvelous feat was attained to earn such a child. She travels like a wish through honeycombs of parallel worlds to find us, to touch our hearts. She wears her tiara within in humbleness. It is the beauty of her inner world we see. A lighted soul waiting in dark waters is she, a lighted temple on the shoreline of prayers, from brilliant cities lit on crystal lakes and rivers. She is the nightly observer, the twilight watcher. She understands and is accustomed to loss more than a child should know in any measure. She is the courageous one in a fearful time. The festivals and holy days have quieted. Sickness has increased the earthly vessels forsaken for eternity, creating grim lily pads in the river Ganges, alongside swaying candles and water that glow and flicker at dusk, alongside frankincense and jasmine-scented flora afloat in leaf cups. Now is the time for filling the ranks of the ancestors. This is where angels are made, to now know the secrets of men. What past life glory, what marvelous feat was attained to earn such a child. She travels like a wish through honeycombs of parallel worlds to find us, to touch our hearts. We are the wayward pilgrims lost in dreams. We are the refugees seeking to worship, the lonely poets observing time, strung together in spirit like pearls, strung together in spirit like tears. For it is the children who are unjustly charged to make the world a better place when they have not yet lived. And the last piece is for my grandson. As I said, he's working his way through autism. The title of the piece is called Toys. Toys for Omar. He aligns his cars in a straight line and stacks his blocks by 6 in perfect columns. He jumps up and down with enthusiasm, for his autism speaks in action. At the moment, he prefers the color green and is reluctant to noise, so he sets his hands upon his ears and disappears to solitude while I am left to await his return. But because I love him so, I have learned to enter a room quietly, to sit and await his attention. Just like his toys, I remain silent for his acknowledgement. He surveys me, and in time grants a smile and then a sudden warm hug. He giggles within my arms, cocks his head and stares as if to say, "Do not worry, Grandpa. I am in control," and then runs down the hall with glee. Yes, we are all his toys. My heart burns with joy, literally burns with joy, a spectrum of emotion within, aching and hurting with happiness, with hope. I shed a tear of joy for this lovely boy, my little genius. Thank you.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How very beautiful that was. All of them, all of them. You are such a word master. Thank you for sharing your poetry for our viewers to enjoy. And I hope that they will reach out to you, and whether it be through your website, or do you have books that you have available for our viewers if someone were interested?
I published my first book when I was 18. It sold out, had 2 printings, it sold out. And then I stopped writing. I just stopped writing. I was going through some things. So I've just returned to the writing world about 1.5 years ago. Since then, I've been in about 45 anthologies. And I've been blessed to have won a great deal of awards in that short amount of time.
I can well imagine.
I have some book offers, but I'm still, so to answer your question, no, I don't have a individual book as of yet.
Okay.
But
are there poems on your website?
Yes, they are. I just shared a poem. If you befriend me on Facebook, everybody, I just shared a poem called Grade Braids, which was a tribute to my mother-in-law on her 70th birthday.
And the title again was?
It's called Grade Braids.
Okay.
Color gray, because she obviously, as long as I've known her, she had braids in her hair and they've been gray.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, that's my tribute to her, and it was well received. Thank God.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today on Sojourn with Words. We wish you continued success. Clearly, you're going to continue to make those waves ripple on the sea of poetry. We look forward to the next book. Unfortunately, we can't get the previous copies, but be in touch and let us know when the new book comes out. Any target deadlines? Not yet?
No, still in negotiations.
Okay.
I'm trying to decide in which direction I want to go.
Gotcha.
But until then, I'm always producing new content on either one of the websites.
Right. Okay. And for our viewers that are just meeting you today, is there a message that you would like to offer to encourage either young poets or just persons who are approaching poetry in general?
Listen, be an angel today. Be an angel today. You have a choice to be an angel today, to affect someone's life, to share kindness. It's important to be the best poet you can possibly be. That's what my aim is. But it's a goal to be a better person. I never put my personality, my spirit above my art.
Oh, okay.
And if you keep that in mind, then your writing will become more spiritual.
I totally embrace that. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you again, Brian Donnell James, for sharing your gift here on Sojourn with Words. We want everyone to always remember that poetry is available to everyone. And certainly the expressions that have been shared on this episode of Sojourn with Words are near and dear to my heart because of the mere notion that love is the center of everything. So thank you for sharing, and remember, pick up a pen, see where your spirit takes you, but always find a way and time to write. See you next time on Sojourn with Words.